Thank you for staying with us. It is still iBrand break. Moving on to the focus for today, the Organised Labour has agreed to suspend its proposed nationwide strike for 30 days following the signing of a memorandum of understanding with the federal government after a marathon meeting that ended around 11 p.m. on Tuesday. The resolution followed over 5 hours of deliberations between the federal government and the Labour at the Chief of Staff Conference Room of the Presidential Villa, Abuja. Announcing the outcome of the meeting to State House correspondents, the Minister of Labour and Employment, Simon Lalong, said the NLC and TUC accepted to suspend for 30 days the planned indefinite nationwide strike. Lalong said the memorandum shall be filed with the relevant court of competent jurisdiction within 1 week as consent judgment by the federal government. However, the NLC president, Joe Ajero, said the unions would revisit the agreement if the government failed to fulfill their demands. And to have this conversation with us this morning is Daniel Akinlami, and he is a public affairs analyst. Good morning, sir. Thank you for joining us.
Good morning. It's my pleasure to be here.
All right, let us start off this way. A couple of weeks ago, there was a warning strike by the NLC. And I remember vividly, banks were shut down as well. A lot of persons in the private sector, you know, kind of observed that a couple of days warning strike that we had. And just recently, during the his October 1st speech, the president said that he is, as of that day, implementing a 35,000 naira wage increase for workers. And as reactions continue to trail that statement made by the president, people are of the opinion and, of course, asking the question, is this for federal workers? Does it trickle down to state and the local government? And, of course, the private sector, seeing that when the NLC goes on strike, everybody joins them. When they sneeze, everybody else gets a cold. So what is in this 35,000 naira wage increase for the private sector? Is it also going to trickle down to them?
Well, I think we have interesting development for the first time for this period of negotiation with Labour Union and TUC. It's been going back and forth for the past 4 months since the subsidy was removed. And here we have the federal government making the biggest commitment on the terms of paying 35,000 naira to treasury paid federal workers, so that we can get it clear. So all federal workers will benefit from this 35,000 naira. This is a landmark promise compared to where we started from about 3 months ago when they've been meeting, and then we had that initial strike, warning strike. Now, what to take away before I come to the issue of the private sector is the fact that for the first time since Labour Union and TUC have been meeting with the federal government team, we can see some concrete offers coming from the side of the federal government. Apart from the 35,000 naira that will be paid for 6 months to treasury paid federal workers. That means those who are on the federal government payroll. We have another offer that is have to do with 15 million household receiving 75,000 for 3 months. That's another part of this. So, and then we still have the tax waiver on the diesel. And then there's this aspect of the microfinance that the federal government want to release on those to help SMEs. Now, let's zero it down to the private sector, as you asked. In all of these negotiations, in all of these proposals and the promises, nobody has come up to talk about the fate of the workers in the private sector. Even NLC is not pushing an agenda or a resolution that will cover the private sector. Now, they are planning to adopt the memorandum, according to the Minister of Labour. So, the resolution of this agreement, they are planning to adopt as a memorandum so that federal government can enter it into their whatever papers, either white papers or whatever, so that it can actually be gazetted. But the most important aspect of this whole thing, the strike, the call for strike, is to make sure the welfare of all workers, either under the federal government payroll or private sector, all workers, their welfare are looked into with the level of inflation we are facing right now as a result of the removal of the subsidy. So if we look at the percentage of the workers under the federal government payroll, maybe we're looking at about 5 to 10% of the entire workforce in the country. So federal government taking care of its own people does not ultimately create that relief for the workforce in Nigeria. Yes, the people under the federal government payroll will have something to take home. Even at that, this arrangement will end by sometimes in March. So even if we look at what federal government is offering its own workers, so what happened after March next year when this 6 months arrangement collapses, ends actually? So we need to look at the long-term solution to the inflation, to the effects of this subsidy removal on the people. Then now we are talking about the fate of the large chunk of workers in this country, especially those in the private sector. So this is an area where the trade union and the Labour Congress need to come out clear. What are they actually fighting for? Yes, I know that the issues are on the doorstep of the federal government. They remove the subsidy, and they need to also provide palliative, provide movers for the workers to survive. I know ultimately, initially, the labor unions' demand was for salary to be increased to 200,000. And now they are looking at 200,000 or 100,000. So paying 35,000 now to the workers is just a temporary measure. It's a short-time thing. What we should be looking at is the long-time, buffer that can help sustain lives. We can see the effect of the inflation in the country right now. Prices of food have gone up. Transportation has not been that easy for people to go to fro within town or go from home to work. So there are several aspects of life. Standard of living too has really been affected.
While we're focusing this conversation around the people in private sector and, workers who are under the payroll of state governments and local governments, you just mentioned that it is grossly inadequate for the federal government to take care of only its people, which was going to form my next question, by the way, because, reactions from several quarters have come out to say that this doesn't make any sense. You pay the very least percentage of workers. Meanwhile, the people who make up the majority of the percentage of workers are not taken care of. So what effects do you think this will have, being that we've, made it open that it is inadequate? So at what point do we start having the conversation reach down to the state government, the local government, the people who are in the private sector? How is this going to affect them? Because what is crying is still going to remain crying. Like we say in Igbo, this is still the same situation. And does that mean that this is now a conversation between the labor and the federal government, which of course it has always been, but are we now leaving the state government behind the burner? And of course the private sector, whom you will agree with me actually drives the economy mostly of this country, and they're being left behind. What are we getting wrong? Well,
I think this is actually the main issue that we are neglecting, because the negotiation for palliative and better life for Nigerian workers with the level of inflation we are facing now should not only be an issue of the federal government. And this is the responsibility of the Nigerian Labour Congress and TUC